This woman was in prison for 50 years, okay? The nerve of him to ask her, the last known person to be seen with his son, did you kill my son? The pretenses behind her attempting to clean any part of this crime scene. She had been accused of killing her husband by way of poisoning him.
Yeah, after that I get out, I walk home.
That confession was a joke. I mean, he could have said anything. He could have said anything, and there would have been no proof. Every time we see something like this, where it's like, there's no care or like regard, why would you cover for this man and allow him to leave the scene of the crime and act like he was never there? Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Kelly, and we are back with another video. If you guys are new to the channel and you enjoy true crime stories, news, politics, and so much more, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, guys. I really would appreciate it. And if you are a returning listener, subscriber, well, thank you guys, as always, for being a friend. I really appreciate y'all, and please like the video if you like it. Give me a comment, whatever you can do. It really does help me out, and it's a free way to do so. And I thank everyone in advance for watching this video.
You know the thing.
So let's get right into it. Okay guys, so we're going to get right into it, and this story is going to be one of those stories that will shock you, and it will truly leave you speechless in regards to the actions that this coward of a man took upon his own family and then himself, which is the most tragic part, I think, of all whenever you think of crimes like murder-suicides, especially where children are involved. It's like, you couldn't have just done everyone a favor and just ended your own life and have been done with it, because this is the story about a man who kills his family of 5, almost every single member except for one son. His youngest son, a 10-year-old boy, was left unharmed. So he took his own life, as well as killed his wife and 3 other sons in a brutal massacre. As a family annihilator, coward of a person that he is. So we're talking about Jonathan Candy today. This was a tragic and horrific crime out of Oklahoma, and there's still a lot that will be coming out about this case. This just happened like maybe a week or 2 ago, and I was just stunned to learn the details of this horrifying event. And I just have so much sympathy and empathy for the little boy who is left now without a family, knowing what his father did to everyone. Let's get into the story and how these events unfolded.
That took place yesterday in far west Oklahoma City. It was about 9:35 when police received a 911 call from a 10-year-old inside the residence indicating that everyone inside the house appeared to be dead. Officers responded to the scene. They found the young man out front. They went inside the house trying to verify what they were told and to see if there were any victims that they could save. Once inside the house, officers found 5 people deceased. At that point, once they realized that the 5 were beyond saving, they checked to make sure there was nobody else in the home. Nobody else was there. They backed out. At that point, we have to apply for a warrant to go in and process the scene. That went on throughout much of the day yesterday. We talked to neighbors, talked to everyone else that could be involved, family, friends, and investigators determined that sometime overnight, the husband and father in the home, Jonathan Candy, became involved in an altercation with his wife, Lindsay. At some point, he armed himself with a gun. He shot her multiple times, killing her. At that point, he systematically went through the home, shooting and killing their children. All of the children belonged to them. There was one child, the one that called 911, that was found unharmed. We don't know why he was left unharmed. I know that's a question everybody has. That's a question we have too. In the end, nobody's ever going to know the answer to that. It's unclear what made him want to go through the home, killing the children, but make no mistake about it. What happened in that residence was nothing short of a massacre. Those children were hunted down and killed after the woman was killed. The child was placed with relatives, with a relative to take care of him.
Yeah.
It was a horrible thing for everybody, the officers who were there, for the people who heard about it, for the investigators and crime scene analysts who had to go inside. And it was certainly most horrible for the young man who woke up and found the carnage in that home. We have no calls to that residence regarding any type of domestic abuse. We have no history from them in our system showing any type of domestic problems being reported to us. So that's something that we're going to talk to friends and family and see if they may know something.
So just truly an unspeakable and heinous act. I mean, I just can't imagine what someone goes through and makes that kind of a choice in regards to their family. 4 young boys, beautiful children who had their lives ahead of them. I mean, I couldn't imagine the pride parents would feel having 4 nice, young, healthy boys, and to just remove that entire, family unit from the face of the earth in one night at the hands of their father. It's unspeakable. It's truly, I don't think we'll ever truly understand as to why anyone could ever do something like this, but it somehow happens regularly enough that we're faced to ask the question over and over again. So this is from the Oklahoman, this article here. It says, Oklahoma City police believe a father shot his wife and 3 of his children to death inside their Yukon area home before turning the gun on himself, which is what he should have done in the first place, in what officials are calling a massacre. At around 9:35 a.m. Monday, police responded to a call regarding 5 people dead inside the home at 2804 Mirage Street. Investigators believe John Candy, 42, shot and killed his wife, Lindsay Candy, as well as their 18-year-old son, Dylan Candy, 14-year-old son, Ethan Candy, and 12-year-old son, Lucas Candy, before then killing himself. A 4th child, a 10-year-old boy, was in the home but left unharmed. He woke up Monday morning to discover what had happened to his family and made the 911 call himself, Sergeant Gary Knight said at a news conference Tuesday. And that is just heartbreaking. I mean, my God, to think that this little boy probably woke up on a Monday thinking that he was just going to have a regular day, going to school, woke up, maybe realizing, he might have been late for school or wondering why nobody had woken him up. Who knows? Who knows what was going on? But just thinking that, every day should be innocent for a child. And to think that this is what a 10-year-old boy had to wake up to and deal with on this day is just the most disturbing thing and just the most heartbreaking feeling I could even imagine for anyone, let alone a child. It's just truly deplorable to think that this is what this father chose to do, and then why he left his 10-year-old son, which thank God he did. Truly, thank God this boy was left completely unharmed. There was no attempt on his life at all. He was just left unscathed, and I don't have any idea why. They have not released any sort of potential motive, and like that police officer said, we'll probably never know. It could have been anything as simple as the little boy didn't wake up and the others did, or it could have been something more complex having to do with their relationship. We will never probably know. And now this little boy has to face the rest of his life with the events of that night and the aftermath and the facts that your father did this to your entire family. You go from having a mother, a father, and 3 siblings, 3 older brothers, to having none of that. It's unfathomable, truly. So investigators determined that sometime overnight, the husband and father in the home, Jonathan Candy, became involved in an altercation with his wife, Lindsay. At some point, he armed himself, shot her multiple times, killing her, and at that point went around systematically killing and shooting all of their children except for 1. And it says investigators found no signs of a struggle, and Knight said at least one of the children was shot in bed. So again, we don't know if this was simply due to the fact that the children who were killed woke up and were crying out or calling out for their father, or were crying out wondering about the noise. I mean, there's just simply no telling. Simply no telling whatsoever. And I'm sure they have interviewed this little boy, but it's almost too horrifying to even want to know the details of, or even try to like push any sort of information out of this little boy, because it's like, how can you even, it doesn't even matter at this point. I mean, he and his healing is all that matters, but it's just unthinkable. I mean, this is truly one of the most heinous things I've ever heard of, and it's really, again, too bad that he didn't just kill himself. This disgusting man, if you can even call him a man, I will never understand why people who would go and do something this despicable would not just kill yourself. If you're going to take the coward's way out after murdering your entire family, just take yourself out to begin with. And I don't advocate for anyone committing suicide. I mean, that's not what I would ever want from anyone. But if you're going to take 5 innocent lives or 4 innocent lives and then your own, well, then just do us all a favor and just get the last part out of the way first. So they interviewed one of the neighbors, and this is what the neighbor had to say in regards to who this family was, and specifically who Jonathan was.
But they were not closed off from the neighborhood. She, like I said, she didn't come out here and mingle with up here, because we're in our late 60s, they're in their 40s. But John, he was out. He liked talking. I mean, I already miss him. I just sat here thinking, I can't imagine that nothing's going to be there for a long time. As kids, as a matter of fact, it was just a week or so ago, Scout got out, and you want me to go get him for you? I said, I got him, and then they come over and petted him, and then went right back to playing again out in the, in their yard.
That was Michael Burcham, who was just speaking, one of their neighbors there on the cul-de-sac, and he went on to say that they had spent time flying drones together, and he saw Jonathan Candy as a friend. He said he never saw or heard of any incidents between Candy and his wife, Lindsay. So he also went on to say that Candy had guns as well as food stored up, but not so much that it seemed out of the ordinary. It seemed like a regular guy, I suppose. Burcham said he and his neighbors were in disbelief Monday when they heard the news of the family's deaths. All day we just couldn't imagine, he said. He must have been really having a hard time. And I hate to think that this is this man justifying or making any excuse for this despicable human, because there just isn't one. I don't care how hard of a time you're having. And I get it. Like, this is somebody who knew this family. You have to cope in some way or another. I'm not trying to come down on this man for saying this, but it's just unhelpful. And it's just not even remotely relevant to the situation. I mean, you're having a hard time, go for a walk. I don't know what to tell you. You don't take out your entire family and then shoot yourself to try to make your day better. Try to make yourself have a better day. But again, this is a man just trying to cope with a loss right now, and I get it. Candy and Burcham had both previously shared with each other that they struggled with depression. So the uncle of the boy said, "My nephew is a sweetheart and he's going to need a lot of help to get through this." He went on to say, "People love the kids. I've gotten a ton of messages from everyone. It's truly heartwarming, the love people have for them." So it says they won't mention the shooter by name or even acknowledge him. It's all about the little survivor, his uncle Brent Rimorowski said. They're a close-knit family who spent the weekend together, all doting over the 10-year-old boy and talking amongst themselves about the legacies of Lindsay, Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas. So Brent told Fox News Digital as recently as Sunday night and Monday morning that his nephew is hanging strong, especially over the weekend when the family came together. He's got plenty of distractions right now. I just think about when all that attention ends and everything. He expanded on his thoughts on Monday's update on GoFundMe, where he thanked everyone's heroic actions, including things done behind the scenes that will probably never get attention but is just as important. There is no quick fix, he wrote in an online post about his nephew, but thanks to all of you who have donated or shared this message, my nephew has a chance at a normal life. And these were pictures of the sons who had perished at the hands of their cowardly father. This is Dylan Candy, who graduated from high school in 2023, who was 18 years old. This is Ethan Candy, who was a freshman in high school in Oklahoma. This was Lindsay. I guess they don't have a picture of the 12-year-old boy, except for, you know, these older photos, but it's just, and you see the potential in these young boys, and they had their whole lives ahead of them. It's just, I mean, it really just takes your breath away. So this is their GoFundMe. If you guys are inclined to want to donate, I will probably be donating to this because it's just really despicable and just so tragic what has happened to this family, and just this young boy. I mean, I just cannot imagine what he is going to have to go through for his whole entire life. But it's helping Lindsay Candy's surviving son. And I'll just read the description here, the initial description. There's been several updates, as one as recent as April 29th. And you guys can go on and read all these if you want, and I'll link this in the description box. But it says, my name is Brent Romorowski. I'm setting up this GoFundMe page to support my lone surviving nephew after he awoke to find his entire family dead from an apparent murder-suicide last week in Yukon, Oklahoma. As you can imagine, when a child is left with literally nothing and witnesses what he has, there are many immediate needs as well as long-term ones that will persist for some time. The proceeds will be put into a trust in my nephew's name with my sister-in-law as trustee and legal guardian. The funds will be used for mental health, education, and whatever else comes up that we can't anticipate. Please say prayers for my family and my nephew, and if you feel so inclined to donate, we thank you for your support. So I do just want to show you guys also, this was a video where apparently this couple made an appearance on the local news. So it says here, this is from The Sun. Happy couple, eerie video of killer dad joking in interview 2 years before shooting wife and 3 kids dead in massacre resurfaces. So let's take a look at this video here.
Because at Just Baked, you can get more than baked goods.
I come here twice a week in the morning just for their breakfast burritos, which are by far anything better than you can get around here. And I love it because I can eat a big burrito and then I don't have to eat until nighttime. I love the carrot cake. I don't eat a lot of sweets, even with my last name, but I love the carrot cake.
I like the cannoli. The cannoli are good.
And so obviously you can't really glean much from that, but it is just chilling to see. I mean, just from that very short clip, it doesn't even seem like this would be possible for people like this. And it just goes to show you that you never know what people are capable of, and you can never tell who is going to be someone like this person was that would do such an act like this. I mean, look at Chris Watts. Did some of the most heinous, disgusting, unfathomable, unspeakable crimes, and the things that he did to his children and his wife are some of the worst I've ever heard of. And I mean, same thing with this man. And they're both like young, nice looking guys, like, so, you know, so much potential, it would seem, so much, you know, I mean, possibility, so much life. I mean, it's just, you can't help but to really question everything when you see something like this happen. So the last thing I want to show you guys is this law and crime video, giving a little bit more detail and kind of looking into the psyche behind why this could have potentially happened, and then we'll get on out of here.
The loss this child has experienced is incomprehensible.
A massacre in Oklahoma with only one life spared. A father allegedly hunted down his wife and children one by one, killing the entire family with the exception of the youngest son.
3 of the children were murdered and 1 was left behind. I have never seen that before.
But why would the suspect leave behind a sole survivor?
Perhaps he came to his senses at the last minute and decided not to kill his son, or again, they had some kind of special relationship.
And what led up to the gruesome crime?
Because when you're talking about somebody who kills a spouse and then, you know, systematically, it appears, from a little bit we know, goes and murders 3 of his children, that to me is a different scenario than somebody who, out of anger, just immediately kills a spouse and then kills himself.
It was around 9:30 in the morning on April 23rd when dispatch in Canadian County, Oklahoma received a 911 call. The caller on the other end, a 10-year-old boy who'd woken up to find his entire family murdered. Investigators soon determined the shooter was the boy's father, 42-year-old Jonathan Candy, his mother, 39-year-old Lindsay Candy, and his brothers, 18-year-old Dylan, 14-year-old Ethan, and 12-year-old Lucas, had all been shot and killed.
My first thoughts were just how tragic and how unnecessary, the loss of all this life is.
That's clinical and forensic psychologist Dr. Joni Johnston. She says there are still many unanswered questions about the tragic crime.
You have these 3 young children who are, haven't even started their lives, basically, who've been, murdered by somebody they should have been able to trust. So that was my first, initial thought. And then I think I put my psychologist hat on a little bit more and just started looking at some of the dynamics. There's so much we don't know.
Investigators say the youngest son, whose name isn't being released for his privacy, was sleeping at the time of the murders. He was inside his room with the door closed and a box fan on, muffling the sound outside his door. Oklahoma officials say Jonathan hunted down and killed the children and his wife. 2 victim bodies were found in the home's upstairs and 2 more downstairs. Joni says she's never seen a crime like this before.
And I think the thing that's the most puzzling, and it'll be interesting to get more information, is the fact that there were 4 children, and 3 of the children were murdered and 1 was left behind. I have never seen that before. I've certainly seen situations when you had a child, for example, who spent the night with somebody, or you had children who were off at college, and so they were spared in that way. They just weren't home. But I really have never seen a situation where you have a parent murder part of the kids and leave 1 behind. And, I think there's a lot of different possibilities here, but I think we're going to need more information before we have, maybe we'll never get the definitive answer, but at least have a better, more educated guess.
Ahead of the murders, those who saw Jonathan say everything seemed fine. He worked part-time with the Oklahoma City Thunder basketball team and was at the Thunder Pelicans playoff game just hours before the murders. But are there any sort of warning signs that friends or family seeing the perpetrator, Jonathan Candy, that they should have been picking up on?
Well, another puzzling part of this case appears to be that there's no indication of domestic violence. And we know that domestic violence, particularly when you're talking about murder-suicide involving a man and a woman or partners, domestic violence is a huge red flag. It's involved in about 70% of murder-suicides. And so oftentimes that's the number one thing that you see, which is, is not a huge surprise. Now, there's a couple of different possibilities. Sometimes people have a history of controlling behavior, verbal abuse, those kinds of things that doesn't reach to the level of law enforcement involvement or, a wife telling other people. And so it's possible that there was some warning signs that other family members or friends picked up. The other thing I think that I would be looking for, well, 2 things really. One, were there financial problems? Was there some crisis in the family, which is another risk factor for, murder-suicide, when there's a financial crisis in the family and the parent becomes so distraught that their thinking becomes distorted and they start feeling like the family can't survive this, which of course they could, but it's that distorted thinking. And then, depression, I think, is the other thing I'd be looking for, because we do know in murder-suicide that almost always suicide comes before murder, the thoughts. So the person is thinking about suicide, they're depressed, they're feeling hopeless, they're feeling helpless, and then for whatever reason, they begin to think about taking other people with them. And so I think whenever somebody is feeling, of course, by far most people who commit suicide do not take other people with them, but that's something to pay attention to.
Jonathan's family released a statement to local station KFOR reading, quote, "Our entire family has been left shattered and confused with so many questions we won't ever have answers to. Jonathan was the one whose jokes and goofy attitude kept everyone smiling. Aside from these events, his children and wife were his entire life." What's interesting is that leading up to the murder, his family said that there were no big red flags, kind of as you said, things were pretty normal. And they've since released a statement basically saying he was just a goofy guy. They specifically said goofy. He liked to have fun with his family, joke with the kids, and they never saw this coming. So is it possible that it's something he was struggling with alone and never let it on to anyone else?
It absolutely is. I've read, and again, I don't have any firsthand knowledge, that at least one of the neighbors had mentioned depression in reference to him. Now, I don't know what that means, but it certainly is possible. We know that there still is a stigma around getting help for any kind of mental health problem, and that is particularly true for men. And the other thing we know is when you look at depression in men is that oftentimes the signs and symptoms of depression don't appear the same way. Men are more likely to isolate, they're more likely to be irritable, kind of angry, and express things that way. And so even family members who are close to this person may notice this person's a little edgier, they're quieter, they're more secretive or whatever, but they're not laying in bed all day, they're not crying, they're not, talking about suicide, they're not seeking help. The things that we look for oftentimes when we're looking to see if somebody is depressed.
So this is just truly tragic on all fronts. I mean, I can't imagine what the families are feeling at this moment, the families that lost their daughter as well as their grandchildren, and also the families that lost their son and have to deal now with the fact that their son was responsible for all of this carnage, all of this destruction of such a beautiful young family, so many hopes and dreams, so many, years ahead of them, and now it's all gone. And the amount of lives that have been ruined by this tragedy and have been affected will, continue on for years to come. And the most important of which being that little boy who now again has to deal with all of this and face this alone without his family. So it's truly just unspeakable and just incredibly tragic and incredibly hard to swallow, knowing what has happened to this young family. As we look here at their family photo of a younger, more innocent time where they were seemingly happy together, and you just really have to wonder what could have gone through this person's head to do what he did. But what do you guys think? I'll try to keep up with this story as time progresses and more info comes out, but I have a feeling that this is going to be buried. The stories like this where there is a murder-suicide and, it's kind of like resolves itself in the fact that, like the perpetrator is no longer alive. Things like this, stories like this tend to just pretty much kind of fade away into the background. But I'll try to see if there's any updates that come out, and I will let you guys know if I do hear anything. But what do you guys think? Again, I can't with this story. It's so depressing. It's so just, awful what has happened. But I will keep this little boy in my prayers, and I will donate to their GoFundMe if you guys want to do that as well. I will link it in the description, and subscribe to my channel if you guys want to see more videos like this. And please like this video if you guys liked it or appreciate the content that I bring, and I would appreciate y'all. But until next time, guys, y'all stay safe out there, and I will see y'all later. Bye. This woman was in prison for 50 years, okay? The nerve of him to ask her, the last known person to be seen with his son, did you kill my son? The pretenses behind her attempting to clean any part of this crime scene. She had been accused of killing her husband by way of poisoning him.
Yeah, after that I get out, I walk home.
That confession was a joke. He could have said anything. He could have said anything, and there would have been no proof. Every time we see something like this, where it's like, there's no care or regard, why would you cover for this man and allow him to leave the scene of the crime and act like he was never there?